It was one of those nights when the darkness seemed thicker than usual, as if the night itself was alive and pressing down on everything beneath it. I was driving home late from a work event, the kind that drags on longer than expected and leaves you longing for the comfort of your own bed. My route took me through a rural stretch of road, the kind where cell signal fades in and out, and the only company is the occasional deer. I wasn't a fan of night driving, especially on these secluded roads. Every shadow felt like it held a secret. Every turn seemed to conceal a lurking threat. But tonight, something felt particularly off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air was still, almost unnaturally so, and the usual symphony of nocturnal insects was conspicuously absent. As I rounded a bend, my headlights caught something in the distance, a figure standing by the roadside. My pulse quickened. It was unusual to see anyone out here at this hour. As I got closer, I could make out more details. It was a woman, dressed in a long white dress, her hair cascading in dark waves over her shoulders. She stood still, almost statuesque, her gaze fixed on the ground. I slowed down, debating whether to stop. Maybe she needed help, but something in my gut told me to keep driving. Just as I was about to pass her, she lifted her head, and our eyes met. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow and dark, like bottomless pits. I slammed my foot on the gas, heart pounding, leaving her behind in a trail of dust and fading light. My hands were shaking, and I tried to calm myself by turning up the radio, but all I got was static. I scanned through the stations, finding nothing but white noise. Great, I thought. Just what I needed. I kept driving, telling myself it was just my imagination, that the woman was probably just a lost traveler or some prankster trying to scare people. The road seemed to stretch on forever, the same trees and bends repeating like a nightmarish loop. I checked the clock on the dashboard. It hadn't moved from 11:47 p.m. Panic began to creep in. I had been driving for at least an hour, and I should have been home by now. I reached for my phone to call my wife, but there was no signal. Suddenly, the car's headlights flickered and the engine sputtered. No, 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 I muttered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. The car lurched forward a few more feet before dying completely, the headlights extinguishing, plunging me into darkness. I sat there for a moment, the silence pressing in on me. I tried the ignition again, but the engine only groaned in response. Cursing under my breath, I grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment and stepped out into the night. The cold air bit at my skin, and the darkness seemed even more oppressive without the car's lights. I popped the hood, the weak beam of the flashlight casting eerie shadows over the engine. As I fumbled with the cables, a sound broke the silence, a soft, whispering voice, almost too faint to hear. I froze, straining to listen. The whispering grew louder, coming from the woods just beyond the road. "Help me," it said, a woman's voice filled with despair. My blood ran cold. It sounded like the woman I had seen earlier. Against my better judgment, I called out, "Hello? Do you need help?" The whispering stopped, replaced by the rustling of leaves. I shone my flashlight towards the trees, the beam cutting through the darkness. For a moment, I saw nothing, just the tangled branches and underbrush. Then I saw her again, the woman in white standing at the edge of the woods, her eyes fixed on me. "Please help me," she repeated, her voice a haunting echo in the still night. I took a step back, my mind screaming at me to get back in the car and lock the doors. But something about her drew me closer. I found myself walking towards her, my flashlight shaking in my hand. As I reached the tree line, she turned and started to walk deeper into the woods, her figure fading into the darkness. "Wait," I called, plunging into the woods after her. The trees closed in around me, the air growing colder with each step. The flashlight flickered, casting long shadows that danced like specters. The whispering started again, now all around me, overlapping voices filled with sorrow and anger. I stumbled over roots and underbrush, struggling to keep up with the woman. She was always just ahead, a ghostly figure slipping through the trees. The voices grew louder, a cacophony of pleas and accusations, until I could hardly think. My flashlight went out, leaving me in pitch blackness. Panic surged through me. I turned in circles, trying to find my way back to the road, but the darkness was disorienting. The whispering was deafening now, a relentless barrage that made my head throb. I tripped and fell, my hands plunging into the cold, damp earth. As I pushed myself up, my fingers brushed something smooth and cold. A gravestone. I scrambled back, my flashlight flickering back to life just long enough to reveal rows of old, crumbling gravestones. I was in a forgotten cemetery, hidden deep within the woods. My breath came in ragged gasps as I realized the voices were coming from the ground, from the graves. "Help us," they cried. I stumbled to my feet and ran, blind and terrified, crashing through the trees until I burst out onto the road. My car was still there, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I threw myself inside, locking the doors and fumbling for the keys. The engine roared to life on the first try, the headlights cutting through the night. I sped away, not daring to look back. The road seemed different now, shorter. Within minutes, I saw the familiar landmarks that meant home was close. I pulled into my driveway, shaking, the whispering voices still echoing in my mind. I never took that route again. The woman in white and the forgotten cemetery haunted my dreams for months, a chilling reminder of the night I ventured too far into the darkness and heard the whispers of the dead.